Our today's podcast guest is an IITian. He completed his bachelor's from IIT Kharagpur. After that, he joined JP Morgan as a quantitative researcher. So, unlike the basic path of getting into software development, he instead became a quantitative researcher at JP Morgan. But just 3 years later, he switched back to software development and now is working as a staff software engineer in ShareChat. He had a lot of insights to share on various different topics, one being how to actually become a quantitative researcher. So, if you are looking to actually become a quantitative researcher, you must watch this podcast. And the other talking about the major tech challenges which big apps like ShareChat face. So I've divided the podcast in two parts. The first part mostly talks about how to actually become a quantitative researcher, what tools you require, how much it pays as compared to software development, and is it even worth it. The second part mostly talks about what are the challenges faced by one of the biggest startups in India, which is ShareChat, and what are the major problems they are solving. I'll be releasing that soon. Like going from your background, as I saw on your LinkedIn, you were initially a quantitative researcher at JP Morgan. You spent 3 years and then you moved to software development. How is being a quantitative researcher is different from being a software developer?
So I think before
Yeah.
that, I would probably explain like I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. I was actually a kind of person who was more interested in maths earlier. In fact, I already always wanted to do CS, but like due to how IIT JEE works and how ranks work, I got mechanical engineering at IIT Kharagpur. I was always interested in maths, so there was a topic that in mechanical called fluid mechanics, which I was very interested in. In fact, I wanted to do research in that, and it is like, if you know about fluid mechanics, heat transfer, it is actually a lot of maths, and that is how I got interested in like these things like quantitative research, because someone told me like this is a field where you apply maths to finance and you can earn money. So
Okay.
I was a bit lucky in that that was the first time JP Morgan was coming to IIT Kharagpur for an internship. So I applied there, and I was actually very good at probability statistics. So I, without any preparation, I got in the interview, mostly because of my I was a like I love probability statistics, like logical puzzles, like, and all of those were what was asked. And then I went for an internship there, and I got a PPO offer, which is how I joined JP Morgan. And so when I was there, back then, like my third year, and I came back to my fourth year because I got a PPO, and then I was had 1 year left. I focused a lot on like learning, because I thought that since I'm a mechanical engineer, I don't know a lot about these concepts. I knew like partial differential equation, mathematics, but I wanted to learn more. So I spent a lot of time. Like a lot of people enjoy their fourth year a lot, but I spent like I had like I took all the topics that I could not. Like I learned more on maths, I learned more on statistics, I learned more on programming. Like in fact, I had never done a DSA course before that. Like
Oh,
I had learned things on my own, but I had not done like formal DSA course. So I did a DSA course. I did also like interesting courses like which are like very advanced topics. Like I did a topic in advanced machine learning without doing basic machine learning, which was with PhD.
okay.
I did a topic in high performance parallel programming, which is like how do you code, which is actually very interesting today because that is how you train ML models. Like I learned GP programming through that, and I learned about computer architecture. So I continued doing that, and then I went to JP Morgan. So the thing there was like it is and the difference is like JP Morgan is a mod, like a quant, at least it's much more embedded, like where you program in Python and C++ and you work on libraries as opposed to, I would say, building and scaling services. And I had some opportunity to work on like full stack things, but that is like very minimal. And then I got lucky again when I shifted to ShareChat, and that is where I learned to work at scale and working at, let's say, like backend systems and learning things from scratch. So I consider myself fortunate to be able to work on such varied domains and keep on learning throughout my career and my college life. In fact, I would say like looking back, I feel myself as being fortunate, but like looking forward, I could not connect the dots. I have never thought I would end up here. And that, in fact, I used to
Right.
think that it would have been much better if I had been a CS graduate, or if I had been much better if I had like learned these things earlier. Even when I was in quant, I always thought it would have been much better if I was like I had done like a master's or a PhD, so that I can go deeper. Like
Mm.
I would say you can never connect the dots. I would say like from like it's only like when you look
Going
backwards you
forward.
can connect it. Yeah.
So initially you joined mechanical engineering that too by interest or like that was the branch which you could get.
So that's an interesting thing. So by the way, like I did my schooling in Delhi. I studied in
Okay.
DPS RK Puram. So one trend that happened, it happens in RK Puram, it still happens, is that a lot of people apply to foreign colleges, like, and they get admits as well.
Right.
So for bachelors, I had constraints on like the financial part, so I could not apply to US, but I applied to a lot of colleges in Hong Kong, etc., where I had gotten full scholarship. So I had gotten full scholarship in computer science for all of this thing in places like Hong Kong University, which are actually very good colleges, HKUST. But I had also gotten IIT and I had gotten mechanical because like on my rank, I had actually gotten manufacturing. I did a branch change to mechanical. On my rank,
Okay.
manufacturing was what I got, and my father is actually a mechanical graduate, so he told me like, since you're interested in physics, you would like it. But then I was confused. I went and met a lot of people. Everyone told me go to IIT. Otherwise, I would have gone and studied computer science outside of India. But then
Okay.
I liked mechanical. It's not that I did not like mechanical. It's just that I wanted to research, and research is very tough. Like,
Right.
and you would see a lot of people who wanted to research coming into quant because, uh, like, number one, like first time you go and earn money, that's a different feeling, honest opinion. And secondly, is
Right.
that uh, research is also, I would say, you have to be very dedicated to do research, and they're like uh, the outcome is less linear.
Would you recommend anyone who is in your position, for example, in school and struggling between joining IIT or going abroad for studies?
So my honest opinion is you should always go and study something that you love. It is very
Okay.
difficult to know what you love in class 11th and 12th, honestly. And in fact, it's quite fungible. Like your interests change over time. But I feel that both have their pros and cons. Like another issue is like if you go abroad directly after your class 12, there's also a huge like culture change that happens, right? And then there are other things that can happen. And then maybe like for example, I got a scholarships because I had a very good percentage in my class 12. But there is also like monetary issues that can happen. For example, I did not apply to US mostly because I knew number one, it's very difficult to do both SAT and IIT JEE and those applications. And number two is that I did not have that profile where I would probably get a lot of scholarship. I feel that you should not select colleges based on the IIT brand value. It will be very difficult when you're in class 12th and you are thinking of decision. Everyone will tell you go to IITs. There is
Hmm.
a intangible benefit like that I still get to this day, honestly. But I feel like your love and interest for something should come above it. I did not know it back then, like in fact. And if I could go back, I would recommend myself to choose like because I knew I wanted to do CS. For example, if I had gone to computer science, I tell this to my parents also. Like if I had gone to computer science, I am quite sure I would have gone for a PhD. The only reason
Hmm.
I backed out of a PhD for mechanical was because I thought I'm not that deeply interested in that subject.
Talking now about quant, you seem like a prodigy. You focused your fourth year reading about all these things, and mostly like even my fourth year, I was just doing fun and a little bit of DSM must be that. Everyone around you is doing something, but you were doing that. That means you really had some really deep interest. If anyone who wants to get into quant, what path will you say like they should follow?
So from what I have seen, and this is I would say like I will tell the positives and negatives, and then how pathway. So initially, when I joined Quant, it was very selective. Like there are hedge funds which can select for you, and there are like banks like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan select for you. Getting into a hedge fund is much harder, and in fact, they also have like very strict criteria. Like I know for a fact that there are some hedge funds which only go for like top 100 in IIT Bombay. So
Oh,
like
okay.
I would not qualify for those, and I think a lot of people might not also qualify for those. Something like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan are easier, but they're also, I would not say, not that easy because they also like pay highly. Like I can tell you from a fact that JP Morgan pays much more than Google even today, like at the beginner position. They
Okay.
pay, I think, much more than most software companies. Like there might be some startup which pays more, but it pays much more. The quant role, at least initially, pays much more. And in fact, the people that I know who are very interested and then they were shifted to hedge funds, I'm quite sure they get much more than what I'm getting paid today. Uh,
Okay.
but because the path to get in is difficult, like I think usually either if you have to be from a target school, like from IITs or from like let's say some other schools that they go to, it is getting easier today. But I would say if you still want to do it, you should not lose interest. There are other firms which you can try. And if not, what I have seen, it's a good path that I recommend. You can go for a master's in financial engineering. It's called an MFE degree,
Hmm.
which you can get from. And I have seen people who go for MFE degrees and get good jobs in US or even in Europe. Like there are good path, like there are good colleges everywhere, and you can apply. And the good thing about finance, that is not like this is a bit different from engineering, like computer science I've seen. The finance is very distributed. Like in computer science, if you're in Valley, you earn a lot, but if you're in London, probably the salary is half or less than that.
Right.
But in
Hmm.
quant, it is not like that. I have seen that there are like traders or quants in London who can probably earn as much as a trader of quant in US, or a trader in quant in Hong Kong who can probably earn as much as a trader of quant in US, because the markets are divided. Like the size of the market in Asia is also huge. Like if you go to Hong Kong or
Hmm.
Singapore and you work, the size of the market is as huge. So your salary will be determined by the size of the market. It's not like based on like. So that is a good thing about quant. So you can also think,
And the college
yeah.
masters which you mentioned, financial engineering. So anyone can apply to that in any branch they are, or like what are the prerequisites?
So usually because there is like bachelor in financial engineering is a degree that does not exist. I think maybe the
Hmm.
specialized college might have it, but no one has it. So what I've seen is people who have an deep interest in maths are the people who go into these degrees, or people who have worked in this sector, like in financial sector. So you don't have to be a quant. You can actually work as, let's say, a financial analyst, or you can work as someone in a mutual fund. Let's say if you're working on like stock market condition. Like I feel like financial engineering is, as I said, like a quant is at intersection of computer science, maths, and finance. So I feel you can get into from any of those paths, but you have to have a deep interest so that you can, in an application, it shines through. You need
Hmm.
to show in an application that you either have some work experience or you have some interest, and you can translate that to that degree and you can be successful. Because what they're looking for
Got it.
is like candidates who can complete the degree, or and then they're also like, for example, there are certificates that I know that you can like apply for, and they're like, these are not like very simple certificates, they cost a lot as well. Like, and
Okay.
then but then those certificates give legitimacy to your interest.
Can you name a few certificates?
Yes, yes. So for quant specifically, there's a certificate called CQF, Certificate for
Okay.
Quantitative Finance. It's a bit expensive, but from what I heard, like I have a few friends who did that and they really loved it. Like it's equivalent of like a master's degree. Also, I've heard from some people. But
Hmm.
there are also like some broad certifications, broader, like they're not for quantitative finance, but they are related. Like there's a certification which is very popular called CFA. CFA has multiple levels.
CFA,
Yes.
right? Yeah, but that is like extremely tough, and people take years to actually get CFA.
Yes, there are levels actually. I think the last
Yeah,
level
level.
is the which is the
Yeah,
toughest one. But I have seen people
right.
in college actually clear level one and level two, and then
Okay.
probably you can start with this because that shows that you have an intent and you want to learn more. And there's also a certificate called FRM,
Hmm.
financial. I forget the name of the CFA FRM.
Mm-hmm.
FRM is more related to like a financial risk management. Yeah, I remember it's called financial risk management.
Financial risk
That
management. Got
is
it.
more related to it as more of a quant side, so you can do those certifications. And I have not done these certifications personally because I
Right.
directly got a job. In fact, after getting a job in JP Morgan, I actually looked at the syllabus for FRM and realized that
Okay.
I know like 50 or 60% of this, like from my, like it was a big overlap with what I had done in college.
Oh.
Like in college,
Okay.
actually, I had taken multiple courses in mathematics, statistics, probability, statistics, and then partial differential equations, and then I had also taken a course in financial modeling. So I had learned like 50 to 60% of what could be learned.
But unknowingly, yeah, like you didn't knew that they actually asked this in the, or this job will require this thing which you were learning.
Initially, it was unknowingly. I told you before third year, I had take because I had an interest in maths, so I took this topics.
Okay.
In fourth year,
Yeah.
it was intentional. Actually, I wanted to learn more
Oh.
about probability, statistics, and ML because I thought this is the topics that I would be interested in, and probably like algo as well as the other topic that I said, like high performance parallel programming. Like I tried to pick my courses very like diligently in my fourth.
And how did the interview look like?
Yes. So by the way, I gave an interview as for an internship. I did my intern and I
Right.
got a PPO after that. So the interview for my internship was actually like a typical quant interview, which is mostly A, probability statistics, B, puzzles, and C, some basic DSA. And
Okay.
so probability statistics, I was like I did a course in probability in that semester, so I could clear all those questions without looking because I had already done a course in that semester. Puzzles, actually, I had a deep interest in puzzle even from my childhood. Like
Hmm.
I joke about it a lot, but it's actually true. Like I used to play games which were like I love puzzle games. For example, like there are a specific category called
Right.
puzzle games. So a lot of the puzzles that were actually asked to me in my interview were something that I had solved like as a game, like playing in a game, like interestingly.
Okay.
So uh, yeah, and then the third part, the DSA part. So honestly, they knew that I was from mechanical, so my focus was more on the maths part. They asked me DSA, which was like quite simple, I would say. Like for example, like things like binary search, etc. So
Hmm.
I actually loved programming in my class 11th and 12th, so I had done a lot of programming then. So with that knowledge, I could clear at least the basic ones. Like they did not ask me anything
Hmm.
complex. Like for example, if they had asked me about, let's say, string matching, I could not have solved it. Like because I did not know any
Right.
algorithm.
And you won't believe me, actually, like you mentioned that you got an interview of puzzles, and I think some tech companies also asked something about aptitude. So a lot of people pinged me about like how to prepare for things like aptitude. So like you were doing it without even knowing that this will ever be asked. So like from your interest, so it's really great.
Yeah, like there are actually books for this. Like I realized it later on, and they're
Okay.
very fun actually to solve. I don't,
Can you name
yeah,
few?
I don't remember it from the top of my head, but I remember there's something called mathematical puzzles. I can actually search for it later. Mathematical puzzles are connoisseurs collection. Uh,
Okay.
this is, I think, I forget this, if this is the one. And then there is, for quant, there's a recommended book actually, 30 hard problems in probability. I'm not sure if people have done this. Uh,
Okay.
this is a recommended book on like if you are giving a probability interview.
Hmm.
50 challenging problems in probability. That is the book. And mm, there is also another book called Algorithmic Thinking. I forget.
That's really great. So, how would you categorize the work, like what you did at JP Morgan, and also the work-life balance, if someone wants to know?
Yes.
So, basically, three things. What everyone wants to know. The first is work. How was the work like? What technologies did you use? What did you build? Second is how was the work-life balance? And the third is how big is the pay difference between a tech job and a quant job?
First would be the work. So honestly, I would say the work is not that difficult. I always feel that sometimes the interview is tougher than the work that you do. And
I think everyone has the same opinion, even about the tech companies interviews.
yes, so even while the interview might be very selective, they actually are selecting for people, like as I said, it's the same in tech companies. They're selecting for people who have an aptitude to solve problems. Like they are not actually looking at, I would say, you are not supposed to solve hard problems in your job every day. There is a process, and the work is very structured, in fact, and you get to learn from a lot of people. In fact, like all of my managers who were there outside of India had PhDs. Like I was very fortunate to work with people who even had like PhDs from Princeton, MIT, all those things, and like a lot of people there had PhDs. Like you'd be very surprised to see like there were PhDs in maths who wrote better
Hmm.
C++ code than probably a lot of developers you know around you.
Damn.
Uh,
Okay.
like they wrote like the logic in maths as well as the C++ code like from scratch. Like they wrote a lot of the library from scratch. I was fortunate to work with some of those people, uh, but then I would say that I realized there's also a ceiling to this job. If you
Hmm.
don't, I would say skill yourself up. So usually what happens is in at least in the job that I was doing, there
Mhm.
was like the overall quant space is very big, so you will get a small part of it, right? And then there are like it's in every tech company. Like you see from outside, it's a very big thing. There are a lot of things to do, but internally, it's a very small thing that you have to do. So my part was mostly on two things. Like one part that I did was on C++, where I did changes in the core quant library for some logic related to events payouts. Like for example, if there is
Okay.
an option expiring, when is the event for that option, all those things. And
So did that involve any maths also, or
yeah, I'll come to
it
that.
was
So the second
okay?
part was on something called so I was in equity derivatives. Equity is basically stocks like that you see outside.
Right.
Derivatives is complex products on stocks.
Stocks.
So, and equity derivatives, I used to work on another thing called investable indices, which is like simple basket of options. I think the simplest analogy would be small case.
Small
Yeah,
case,
something like
right?
small case, like, but for like institutional investors, like, I would say.
Oh, okay, got
So
it.
I used to code the logic for this, and then so I realized that in a big company you only get to do a small part of that. Like, the maths has already been decided by someone who came before you. A lot of the logic has
Okay.
already been built. So you can break that barrier. Like, honestly, I'm not saying you cannot break that barrier. Like, my only problem was that I got in a loop where I thought the work was repetitive, where someone had already solved the problem and I'm just applying it. I could break the barrier if I wanted to, but then I think I had by then realized that I would like programming more. But if someone wants to break that barrier, I would highly recommend them to, like, I would say, study more, do all of those qualifications, maybe go for a master's, maybe go for a PhD, and then maybe like go so much into depth that you are the ones like working at the frontier. Like, I think as a bachelor's, I cannot work as a frontier because I cannot
Hmm.
learn as much maths to like put a dent in that. It is, they would give me implementation work. They would not give me the foundational.
Yeah, or it will take like a lot of years to get there, maybe.
Exactly. Like, I think the 3 years I was there was just the like the taster menu. Like, you would like, it takes a lifetime. Like, in fact, a big difference that I have seen between quant companies, even JP Morgan and tech companies, is that a lot of people stay like 10 plus years in those roles. Like, they stay in a single company for 10 to 15 years. And it's not that they stay because they don't have options. They stay because they feel like the career progression is good that they see within the firm. And there is like a like the difference is like they get rewarded, like I've sort of seen, they get rewarded with bonuses, they get rewarded with promotions, all of those things, and they like the job, like that what they are doing. Number two. And number three is that I think there are also lesser firms, like they're like three or five six
Right.
big firms, so you would not want to change as often.
Hmm.
The third thing that you told about was like the work life balance. Like, honest opinion, I used to work more in JP Morgan than in ShareChat. Like,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
because like even a startup feels less work as compared to JP Morgan. It was the expectation also. The people you work with are very talented, like, and then tens of years of experience, they know a lot. So you would want to like catch up to that rate, number one. And number
Hmm.
two is that I think usually people work long hours in quant. So you see those people and then you work, are forced into that also. Third thing about the compensation, I would say you are compensated well enough for the hours of work you do. In fact, I cannot speak for today's salaries because I have not seen the salaries in a long time. But when I joined JP Morgan, it was, I would say, it was a day zero, day one company, what they say in IIT, like the first
Mm-hmm.
slot, day one, slot one.
Right.
And it used to pay, I think, around 28 or something, like
Okay.
25, 20. Again, it's a long time back. And that used
Right.
to be more than Google. Like, Google used to pay something like 21, 22. Like, this used to pay
Okay.
28. So, which is like 30, 40% more. And then the work was also 30, 40% more, I would say. So,
Right.
it is a good job, at least from a compensation perspective. And if you want to learn, there is no like barrier because you get a lot of autonomy. Like,
Hmm.
it is up to you how you use that autonomy. Like, you can actually go and look at implementation of models, like complex models and all the maths. They don't stop you. If you have the aptitude, you can go all the way. Like, I felt like I wanted to do something else, and maybe that was not something that I wanted to devote all my time to, so I switched. But I still have very fond memories of that time, and I would recommend anyone who wants to go into that field to go into.
So anyone who has such deep interest should definitely pursue that, and not just for the money. They should actually see their interest also.
Yes, in fact, you had another point to the question, like how do you compare it between software and quant?
Right.
So as I said, like quant has two different things. There's a quant in a hedge fund role and a quant in a bank role. Quant in a bank role starts off being higher than, I would say, a big tech. Overall it saturates. I think over time it saturates. Big tech pay increases with levels. You would also know the big tech like the levels increase pay a lot in big tech.
Right.
So I would say after a while it might get more than the quant pay, but at a bank, quant at a bank pay,
Hmm.
because I don't know, honestly I don't know after a level,
Hmm.
but I know big tech pay,
Right.
so it might get more. Quant at a hedge fund, that pays more than big tech. You cannot compare,
Okay.
I think, quant at a hedge fund versus big tech. I have not worked in those roles, so I cannot
Hmm.
comment. But from what I know, as I said, like there is because you manage money, and money is universal, and then money across Asia, Europe, London and US, as I said, is more or less the same. You get paid according to that. I think that also contributes. I'm sure maybe in California, the software developer pay versus quant at a hedge fund pay maybe might match. I'm not sure that matches there.
Hmm.
But at least if you work in India and then you go to Hong Kong and you work in a quant and a hedge fund in Hong Kong, you are getting much more than any software developer in India. Like, it's not comparable.
Right. Yeah, because it is a lot of stress also. You're managing people's money and basically they want it to grow or like hedge it on various funds. So you definitely need to be very good at your job, work long hours for solving these
Yes,
problems.
quant at a hedge fund is a different rule. Like, for example, quant at a bank, like there are a lot of limitations with bank these days. I'm not sure if there's like people can read about something called Dodd-Frank Act. Like, now banks cannot like invest their own money in speculative strategies. Hedge funds
Okay.
can, and that is why you have the risk also. Like, there's a downside. If you lose money, you are fired. I'm
Right.
quite sure that you are fired. You cannot stay in that role. Yeah.
Yeah. So you basically switched your role because you saw that your time was not getting to the best use, and basically you joined for your interests of maths, and you were actually not getting to do that part itself. So you switched to tech. So like when you joined ShareChat, like you directly joined ShareChat or like any other company?
No, I directly joined ShareChat from JP Morgan. I had thought that I might not get a tech role. So
Okay.
it was, I would say, a bit fortunate that I got role here. I was good enough in DSA, so I could clear those rounds. System design, I had never done it in my old thing, but I used to like do like. In fact, this is again like I used to like look at videos on YouTube on, like, I would say, system design, or let's say go over like people who are good at it, like, or probably like database deep dives and all those things. That helped in my interviews. And secondly, I think at that moment, and this is a hack that I recommend to everyone, you can probably not apply it today, is that apply to companies that have recently got a fundraise. Like, that is a
Okay.
good hack to get a higher selection ratio. They are usually hiring more than companies which like normal companies.